Hello, patrons and fellow Bretons, and welcome to a Patreon-exclusive Sherlockian conversation with Michael Culver. You will, of course, remember Michael as Sir Reginald Musgrave in the Musgrave Ritual. Just a quick bit of backstory before we dive in. This conversation was recorded in 2022, a little less than 2 years before Michael passed. And some of our listeners may remember that we posted an excerpt from this interview of Michael reciting the Musgrave Ritual as a small tribute to him when we heard the news. We were lucky enough to have David, our man on the street, be there in person to capture Michael's side of the interview. As it was a bright and clear Easter Sunday outside, Michael suggested we set up the record on the back patio of his London home, so you will hear the occasional bird song and vehicle noise in the background, but we think it adds a bit of character to Michael's side of the conversation. We hope that you will experience a bit of the magic and the joy that we did during this conversation. And know that these moments were only made possible because of contributions from you, our wonderful patrons. Thank you once again for your continued support. And with that, we hope you enjoy our Sherlockian conversation with Michael Culver.
So I can see me. Hi, I can
Hello.
see myself hideously looking, what, about 90 million?
That's me you're looking at.
Very small picture. Hi.
Well, it's beautiful and sunny there, it looks like.
It's a lovely day. Beautiful day. Easter Sunday, the first bank holiday we've had in years. That's when it's actually been sunny.
And you have to spend it with us.
Okay, so the microphone is going. There's the microphone.
Right. How far away? I mean, is that sort of good enough? You catching the sound there?
Yeah.
Would you want it higher?
About there would be great.
Out there? So who's asking the questions, you or you?
So Gus and Luke will ask you the majority of the questions, and I'll come in at the end with anything they might have missed.
All right.
Michael, firstly, thank you for doing this today. In full disclosure, you are one of our most requested guests, so it's extra special to be able to speak with you today.
Well, I'm very flattered.
Before we jump back in time to 1986, I know our listeners would love to hear a bit about how you got your start in the arts. Obviously, your family is full of incredible actors, beginning with your father, the legendary character actor Ronald Culver, who is in one of my all-time favorite anthology films, by the way, Dead of Night. But was there ever a time you considered a path other than performance?
No. I didn't know anything else. I loathed the schools I was sent to. I knew nothing else except the theatre. I was brought up in the theatre. I knew nothing else. And I thought, well, there's only one possible area where I can even earn a living, and that's in the theatre. So I became an actor. I needn't have been an actor. I suppose I could have gone through the management side, but my father was an actor, my mother was a casting director. It was just environment. I think people are mainly, well, their DNA gives them what they could be, and their environment gives them what they become. In other words, all the millions of things that go into us from the moment we're born actually shape how we become. And I hadn't been shaped by anything else. Well, I had, but we won't talk about those because those are personal. The prep school and public school were a nightmare. That's why I became an actor.
Do you recall what you were up to in 1986 when the Musgrave Ritual came your way?
No. It was a job that my agent rang me up and said, go to the interview. I'm not even sure there was an interview. I think David Carson may have just cast me. I'm not sure. I can't remember that. But I don't remember, no. 1986, was it?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was 2 years after I'd come back from India. Other than having come back from India 2 years before, I would have just gone on working, and Musgrave would have been a job that came up and my agent sent me up for, and I got. And I enjoyed.
Had you seen the Granada Sherlock Holmes TV show before then?
Oh, I'd seen a couple of his episodes, yes. I thought Jeremy was the nearest that I'd ever seen to what I thought Sherlock Holmes might be. I thought he handled the heroin addiction. I thought he handled the contradictory and changing mindset of Sherlock Holmes absolutely brilliantly. I think it was best performance for Sherlock ever. And I was very, very happy to be in it. And he's charming, or was charming, lovely man.
Yeah. Were you a fan of Sherlock Holmes prior to all this?
No more than a fan of any other fictional detective. I mean, he's got, because he's British, and I suppose he's got more, I'm sure there are similar detectives in Germany and in France, and, everybody writes detective stories, but he's the one I know, and Sherlock Holmes, we've always known him.
Well, let's talk about Jeremy Brett for a moment. Had you ever met him or worked with him prior to Musgrave?
No, I hadn't. I had never met Jeremy before. It was the first time I'd met him. I cannot emphasise that. He was not that well. His chest was pretty tricky some days, and but that was mainly because he smoked like an absolute chimney. And one knew that he wasn't particularly well, but he was utterly charming to everybody. He was professional to a T, never missed a line, never missed a mark, never lived. I mean, he was a professional actor.
Was your first meeting on set, or did you guys have a great deal of rehearsal time on this?
No, on set. I didn't meet him before we got on set. I mean, possibly a day before on set, but on set. It was not anywhere else. I knew Eddie. I didn't know him, but otherwise it was. And David Carson was charming. I wish there was something other than charming about the show, but I can't think of anything disastrous that happened, or any crosswords between anybody, or any rows. It was just 2 weeks, rather like this weather, perfect weather. A good script, fun to do, as I had to play about 3 different ancestors of my own,
Right.
it was just fun.
Well, that's wonderful to hear.
Yeah, you came in on one of the best episodes for sure, and also kind of one of the maddest ones for Jeremy. Like a lot of big laughing outbursts and things, and I wonder what that was like to be on set with him during that kind of situation.
Oh, he's everything he did was just right. As a performance, it was just right. I can't describe what I mean by that, but as an actor, when somebody else is working with you and they're doing it right, you just know, and you let them get on with it.
Yeah.
And my job in that was very much to let Jeremy get on with it.
Well, it's interesting you say that. There's a variation, I suppose, on Jeremy's performance of Holmes in this episode, mainly having to do with the drug use. I'm thinking of the moment around the fireplace where he's high on cocaine. Do you recall any discussions of that scene in particular and how it was going to be handled? And I ask just because, drug use in the 1980s, it was quite a different animal than it is today. It's quite a taboo thing, but it was handled very specifically. So I just wondered if there was ever any on-set conversation about that you were aware of.
No. I mean, it was quite obviously written that Jeremy was under the influence, but you just accepted. He had researched it, he knew what he was doing, and you accepted that was his interpretation of what happens when you're high on heroin. I'm never having experienced that myself, although I'm having to give myself the most disgusting injections every day at the moment, which would put anybody off heroin. But, they're not disgusting, actually. It's a fraction of a moment of pain. But I'm having to inject myself every day, so I know what it's like to inject myself. Unfortunately, there's no pleasure. But I have had... Yes, I've had cocaine once. I've never had heroin. Cocaine, as far as I could see, just made you think you were a genius for about 15 minutes. And then you came down in the elevator and realised you were a complete idiot and had been talking nonsense. But that was cocaine for me. Heroin I've never tried.
That's perfect for Sherlock Holmes.
Yeah, perfect for Sherlock, yeah.
Well, coming back to your process, I'm curious, when it comes to a literary adaptation like this one, do you like to read the source material or do you stick to the original, to the script alone? What's your process?
Yeah, I read the story. I read the script. I'm bound to admit I did find it quite an easy part. Yeah. All I had to do was be terribly nice to everybody. And as Jeremy was a very nice man, and I knew Eddie from way back, that was pretty easy. So all you've got to do, there isn't a huge amount of interior. I suppose, put yourself in the position of a person whom those things are happening to, and then allow them to happen.
Yeah.
I realise that's an odd description of acting, but that is actually what you do. You put yourself into a situation and allow the situation to take you along the path that the plot takes you along.
Right.
I didn't know I needed help until Jeremy arrived, and then the plot starts to develop, and then I need his help, and he gives it.
Reginald Musgrave is described as grey by Holmes in both the book and the
Grey in the sense of
personality-wise.
Oh yes, I think he hasn't got he's just a perfectly normal bloke. There's nothing anything about him. He's just nice because he needs somebody. He's being nice to them. They're being nice back to him. Grey is a very good description. He does have no very strong personality. He's not described as having a very strong personality. The ancestors, well, I'd be certainly riding around the horse. And
but as an actor, to get a grey character, is that a challenge, or is that something that's sort of like, it's just a job?
Well, no, you just sort of pull everything back. You just don't. There's not a lot to express. I mean, you just. I have played complete maniacs in my time, which I enjoyed. In fact, there was one maniac I played in something called, oh God, what was it with? It was two guys who were a sort of double act, and I played a lunatic who wanted to gas the whole of London if they didn't do what I wanted them to do. I'm a complete maniac, rather like Boris Johnson, actually. When you play a madman, then you allow things to spiral out, and all the things that are in you that could spiral out bad, if you allowed yourself to go barking mad, you just bring up to the top. Yeah, and vice versa. And you push everything down when it's not necessary, not needed. I can't describe. I mean, acting's a weird business.
Well, Grey, as you may have played it, it still comes off as captivating to watch. And again, there's a reason why you're one of our most requested guests. Everybody loves this episode. Everybody loves what you did with Musgrave. So whatever the choices you made, they were the right ones. You mentioned all those generations of Musgraves, that you were able to play in this one. I feel like I have to ask your personal thoughts on this, because in the show, Holmes comes in and manages to recognize the weather vane that no one else has for hundreds of years. What's your theory to explain the Musgraves' inability to, look upward?
Possibly not very bright. I mean, Sherlock did it. I didn't. I mean, what can I say? It was like somebody reading, suddenly saying, "Look, did you realise in your book you've got this?" And you go, "God, I've looked at that for years and I've missed." I mean, he missed it. They didn't know it.
Was there an explanation for the scene when you come running in with a whole armful of fishing rods and hand them off to Jeremy Brett, and then he splays them on the ground and just looks across them all and then selects one?
Yeah, we could just never figure out why he wanted all the fishing rods. What was the impetus for all the fishing rods?
Why did he need like 25 fishing rods?
Yeah.
I haven't the faintest idea.
That's perfectly
I think
fine.
it was something to do with length, as far as I remember. He wanted something long enough to do a series of measurements. Was that
he was
not
doing
right?
trigonometry, but he was trying to figure out the height of a tree that wasn't no longer there. But it was just the way that Jeremy did it. Like you come like kind of trundling in with all these things under your arm, very very Musgrave like, and then you hand them over to Jeremy, and he's like, yes, and then he just spreads them all across the room, and then just picks one, and it just felt like.
I think it was
Who
just
made that call?
Jeremy making a very good theatrical point. I don't think it was anything more than that. I think he was just having fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's what it seemed like. I mean, I think at some point he just says, "Get every fishing rod in the house."
Yeah.
It's like a great little moment.
There's another classic humorous moment between you and Jeremy. I'm not sure if you recall it. It's probably one of the fans' favourite moment, where he asks you how's your wife. and you say, "I'm not married," and he pauses and replies, "How wise," and then walks off.
I don't remember it, but yes, it's a nice moment. I don't remember it. I had an equally nice moment with Eddie, actually, at some point. I seem to remember a tiny little moment with Eddie where we had a little kind of eye movement
You're
together.
discussing the personal equation.
Yeah, it was something that Jeremy had
it.
said, and Eddie and I pick it up and contact each other with our eye, just purely an eye movement, which I remember as being quite amusing, but I can't remember quite what it was.
It's just him telling you that if you can remove the personal equation out of the investigation, as the astronomers call it, you can get to a clearer space. And it all sounds very good coming out of Watson's mouth, and you're just kind of nodding.
Yes.
And then you're like, did that make any sense? And then Watson goes, just all eyes, like, sure it did. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, that moment. I just remember that. Sorry, you're getting stuff all over your computer.
I also want to bring up your glasses that you wear.
Oh, sort of pair of half...
Yes, which sits on the end of your nose for the entire episode, but you don't ever...
Did I?
Mm-hmm.
Did I?
You don't ever seem to actually...
No, not when I'm riding.
Oh, no, but you're a different character.
Different character.
But you don't ever appear to look through them. They just sit on the end of your nose.
Oh, well, Musgrave had very odd sight. Purely for they were just readers.
There's like a knuckle on them. There's like a weird little knuckle that hung on your nose, and then the lenses were under it.
Well, Granada was very good at making sure everything was period correct, so I'm sure they were probably painstakingly acquired. I'm sure they were.
Legitimate. Granada were an excellent firm. I loved working for Granada. I did some of my best work for Granada. I did a wonderful series called Game, Set and Match, which went to Mexico, Berlin, London. It was a wonderful series. But the guy who wrote it, Len Dayton, who's a very famous author, something about it he didn't like. Nobody has ever discovered what. It was repeated once, and then it was never seen again. And it was, I thought, a very interesting spy thriller. It was just as the Berlin Wall was coming down. And there's a huge amount of topicality in there. But Len Dayton wouldn't allow it to be shown again. And I had a smashing part. I'm rather pissed off, actually. I played a very, very, very silly MI6 officer who thought he was the bee's knees and was actually a complete idiot. And it was great fun to play. And we went to Mexico and we had a wonderful time there. Sorry, off the point, but it was a very good show.
No, that's great.
So if you can, you might be able to find it, but you'd have to really search.
Yeah, well, we'll take a look for it.
There's a really funny kind of could be considered an in-joke in the show, because when you're reading the Musgrave Ritual, what's actually written on the page is different than what you're reading back to Watson. And so it almost seems like you've just been doing the ritual wrong this whole time, and that's why you guys never solved it. And then Holmes goes out and walks it and then figures it out. I don't know if you recall any discussions about that on set, but the prop was actually different than the script.
You mean the prop I read from was different? Is it?
Yes.
Oh, is that you've discovered something in the... So you mean this is a cock-up, basically? You're actually saying that we made a mistake. I didn't recognise that or know or remember it. Have you got the actual bit from the film? I could see it.
Well, we were able to examine it with using HD technology, and we were able to zoom in on it and recreate it.
And the thing I was reading from was not the Musgrave Ritual.
It was just that the prop was created differently. It was written differently than the script. And I think what David Carson told us was that it had to be altered so that it would work within the boundaries of Baddesley Clinton, the building where you guys filmed.
That's possible.
So it's a bit different. Yeah, but I was curious if you ever noticed it while you were filming, that you were actually reciting words that were different than the ones that were on the page right in front of you.
I don't remember that. No, and David must. And obviously, but you're not saying you can actually see that I am reading something that is not the same as the script.
There's just a moment where it's sat on the table and Watson is asking you what's on it, and you're just reciting it from memory.
And I'm not reciting what's on the table?
Right.
Yes, but but it's upside down, and I think we're not supposed to see it because they had changed it based on the location.
Yeah.
After they got there and after they made the prop, so it's just a funny little kind of in joke.
Absolutely.
If you see it.
I was not aware of it. You've discovered an in joke that I was not aware of.
Well, and coming back to all those Musgrave men that you played, I'm curious to know, so that was you on the horse, that wasn't a stuntman?
Oh, that certainly was me on the horse, yes. I can ride.
Yeah.
I did a series called Black Beauty when I was about
Yes.
21. I had a wonderful horse, amazing horse called Johnny, who would quite literally gallop up a 1.5 mile hill and stop on a mark without me doing anything. Huh. I mean, that is a horse. That's unbelievable.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, yes, I could ride. That was me on the horse.
That's great. Well, and if I recall correctly, you also got to don a pretty wizardly long beard in one of those.
It's a lot of glue.
Well, this entire show, this entire hour, was shot on location at Baddesley, Clinton, near Warwick, a place we've actually been lucky enough to visit. How did you find filming in that location? Were there a lot of rules and restrictions due to the fact that it was a National Trust house, or were you guys just more or less, left to your own devices while you were there?
I don't remember. I mean, I think we just behaved with the normal consideration that one would give to, when one was filming anywhere. And the crew were very good, and the lighting. I don't remember it as ever being, people saying you must be very careful, don't tread there, don't tread. I mean, we obviously observed basic courtesies and just treated the place properly. And it was a charming location. I mean, wonderful location with a moat. I mean, it was wonderful. And grounds to ride horses in. It was wonderful.
I always kind of wondered what the discussion was like when they made you do your own rowing in the boat where you guys are crossing the moat. That for some reason, you ended up rowing Sherlock and Watson across the moat.
Oh, yes, I did, yes. Well, what can I say? I knew how to row. So I rowed him across the lake.
You can row, you can ride.
Yeah. I'm a really versatile human being.
I get the feeling it was never going to be Jeremy, was it?
No, it wasn't going to be Jeremy. No.
Was all of it filmed on that property, like the lake, the cellar? Was any of it shot anywhere else?
No. Not what I remember. I never went anywhere else. It was the lake, and we filmed going across the lake. No, and all the shots on the horseback, was enough land to do that. No, it was all shot in the same area.
Even the cellar. I was always curious about the cellar because I was curious. It seemed very lucky if you found the perfect cellar down there.
I think there was a cellar as well. Did you go to if you went to it, did you not find the cellar?
We didn't, because that part was off limits to guests while we were there.
Yeah.
Well, it does exist.
That part was off limits, but there was a lot of, they called them like priest hides. There was like holes in the ground to hide priests during that time.
Well, that was the Reformation and Catholics and Protestants and, oh dear, all the belief systems of the world, which I have a particular loathing of. Every single one of them. In fact, I think belief should be stricken from every dictionary in the world. And people should be made to think, not believe.
Exactly.
I mean, it sounds like it was a really fun project.
It was.
To be able to do all that.
It was great. Everything, every day was fun. I mean, you were doing something. And the whole show was a joke. I mean, Sherlock Holmes is a gag, really. I mean, the detectives who discover in 50 minutes. I mean, I think everybody accepts that those sort of shows are enjoyment shows. They're not real hideous crimes are being committed there. It's a fantasy, and it was a very fun fantasy.
Well, I want to come back to Edward Hardwicke, because you mentioned that you guys went way back. Where did you first meet Edward?
I met him on my very first job. No, not my very first job. Sorry, I went into Dundee Rep when I was 17 as a stage manager and general factotum and moving cups of tea and generally doing nothing. But that was purely as a student ASM. I wasn't working, wasn't acting. I think I had one tiny part in a show. But I went to the Old Vic when I was 19, and I did 18 months at the Old Vic, and Eddie was there, and so I met him there, so I knew him. I don't think he came to America, though. We did a year in London, and then we did a 6-month tour of the Vic. We went right across from from New York to Chicago to L.A., and then toured all around America, which he was not on, but I knew him from London for a good year. We didn't know each other that well. We just got on. I mean, we liked each other.
But never having shared the stage?
Not really. Well, only as crowd in Henry V or Hamlet or whatever we were in. I mean, we were just also rans holding spears at the back of the stage. But that was the job. And we did it. I did it for a year at the Vic. And I think I had one line in Hamlet, and that was about it. And I understudied Laertes, but never got on.
But I want to come back to the show just because the rest of the supporting cast, James Hazeldine as Brunton, Joanna Kirby as Rachel, I mean, fantastic performances all around. Any special recollections of memorable interactions with
Not
any
really.
of those guys?
I didn't have a lot to do with James. Sorry, I thought that was a wasp. I didn't have a lot to do with James. I really, my main work was with Eddie and Jeremy. But I mean, we all got on. We all had a good time.
Well, tell us a little bit about David Carson. I mean, he was quite a young director at the time. How did you find working with him?
He was absolutely splendid. This is the awful thing. I have got nothing but positive memories of the show. I've got no bitch memories.
Yeah. There's no dirt to have.
But how would you describe his directing style compared to some other directors you've worked with in the past?
I think he was very, what's the word, accommodating. He just trusted the actors to do the job properly, which a good director does. Once they've cast you, they must think you're right for the part, and so they expect you to play the part. And he didn't really give us any pieces of direction that I disagreed with or didn't want to do. It was the whole show, I can only say, was amicable from the word go, and was amicable at the end. I mean, it was a happy show.
It's funny that you say that because we did speak to David Carson a bit, and we heard a story or two about the fact that they started to run out of time towards the end, and they started to have to kind of crunch and rush. And there was a scene between Brunton and Rachel, and they had to get it in one take, and so there were no cuts. There was some rush towards the end, but I guess that didn't seem to affect you in your scenes.
Not that I remember. No. If they had that rush, it was not. I wasn't involved.
Did you ever reconnect with Jeremy or Edward after this?
No. I'm afraid actors lead pretty lonely lives in that respect. I mean, occasionally, if you work with somebody for a very long time, you might become bosom pals with them. I did a couple of 2 or 3 series of something called Cadfile in Budapest, and one of the actors who I had to quite a lot of work with, I know I could ring him up and he might come round and have a meal. But most of the time, actors, we're a bit, I don't know what we're like.
Ships in the night.
Yeah, ships in the night. We are ships in the night. We never know where we're going to go next. We never know who we're going to work with next. And basically, you have to try to get on with everybody. Because, unless, if you're lucky, you've got an aggressive scenes with people and you don't like them as well, can help, but basically we have to get on with everybody.
Before we let you go, I do want to ask, are you officially retired, or can we expect that there's a chance that we might see you on the screen again moving forward?
Well, somebody'd have to offer me something really interested me, and as nobody's come near me with a script that interested me, highly unlikely.
Sure.
My only appearances really are when I go to Star Wars conventions. Though there are other things I would rather be remembered for than my appearance in Star Wars, but there you go. That's an actor's life.
This is a big one for the Sherlock fans. Trust us.
Yeah.
This has been a joy to talk to you.
Well, Michael, I know this show is just one tiny slice of your incredible career as an actor, but to us, the Musgrave Ritual is simply a masterpiece, and your performance in it is nothing short of perfection.
You're very, very kind, and I can only say you picked one of the happiest shows that I ever did. So thank you very much.
David, did you find your copy of The Ritual?
Oh, let me go get the copy of The Ritual.
Oh, yes, just.
I'll just pop.
I want to see it.
This is actually, we brought this. This is actually for you. We got it.
Wonderful.
Hey, David.
Yeah.
Why don't you just before we
Do you want me to
put a
read
button
it?
on this thing? Would you mind reading it?
No, not
Do you want me to hold it for you? Will you?
Right. Well, let me just see if I can read all this. Where was the sun over there? Where was the shadow under there? And how was it stepped? Right. Okay.
All right.
Whose was it? He who is gone. Who shall have it? He who will come. Where was the sun? Over the oak. Where was the shadow? Under the elm. How was it stepped? North by 8 by 8, east by 7 by 7, south by 6 by 6, west by 5 by 5, and 2 by 2, and so under. What shall we give for it? All that is ours. Why should we give it? For the sake of the trust